Welcome back to the channel, folks, where today, the 1st of March, we look at the first plant in the spring of 2026 series, where today we'll be looking at a plant and its cultivars known as the crocus. The crocus, along with the snowdrop, is perhaps one of the first spring flowers to appear, and it appears in purple, yellow and white forms, amongst others. The crocus is a plant which is found in the Family Iridaceae, or the iris family. The crocus is a low-growing, early spring flower which emerges from a bulb-like structure known as a corm. The aim of today's video is to look at the general floristic and vegetative characteristics of the genus, and not so much the individual species, cultivars and hybrids. For those of you who may wish to do that, please refer to the general link in the description on the plant crib by James Common. As the video is aimed at the beginner, it is worthwhile saying a few words about the confusing terms species, variety, cultivar and hybrid. A species is a naturally occurring group of plants that can interbreed, and often includes, for example in the case of ladybirds, various spot formations known as forms, or in the case of plants, subspecies in terms of the flower colour, such as subspecies alba. A variety is a plant which exhibits a specific characteristic, which could be flower colour, or leaf shape, or any other characteristic. When a variety or variation becomes of interest to humans and it is selected and selectively bred to form seed, it becomes known as a cultivar. A hybrid can be created in both nature and in horticulture by crossing two different species of varieties to produce a new plant with the characteristics from both parents. A cultivar, or cultivated variety, is a plant variation that has been developed through human intervention. It is specifically bred for certain desirable traits such as colour, size or disease resistance, and cultivars retain these traits when propagated. There are approximately 100 species of crocus worldwide, and here in the UK we plant 5 or between 5 and 8 of those species, 3 of which we see in spring and the other 2 in autumn. One of the first crocuses to appear by wayside is the early crocus or woodland crocus known as Crocus thomasinianus, which is also followed by the spring crocus, Crocus vernus, and the yellow variant, also known as the golden crocus or Crocus chrysanthus. In the following slide we see a number of species of crocus as well as a number of cultivars within each species, hence the general nature of the video. Autumn sees the arrival of 3 further species: the saffron crocus or Crocus sativus, Bieberstein's crocus or Crocus speciosus, and a third confusion species, rather misaptly named autumn crocus, known as Colchicum autumnale, which in fact is not a true crocus and is poisonous. Saffron is a spice derived from the flower stigmas, also known as threads, of Crocus sativus, which is known as the saffron crocus. It takes approximately 440,000 stigmas, all of which are hand-picked, to yield 1 kilogram of spice. Therefore, saffron, depending on its quality and origin, can cost between $5,000 and $17,000 per kilogram, and it's predominantly grown in Kashmir, Afghanistan, Iraq and Turkey. Let us briefly outline the habitat of the crocus. It is typically found in a variety of habitats including woodland, meadows, stony mountain slopes and often in areas with good drainage. The crocus prefers a soil which is well drained, and it grows best in light conditions which have full sun or partial shade. Welcome folks, it's Wildlife Ranger here on YouTube. Welcome to the first in the early spring flowers of the 2026 season, where today we've come to look at a plant in the family Iridaceae, or the iris family, known as crocus. As you can see from the backdrop behind me, we're in a local parkland in a memorial garden where these crocuses have been planted. Normally the habitat that we find this plant in is on dry soils, so it's no coincidence that we're on a hillock with good drainage. So they like dry soils close to deciduous trees, which you can see in the background. It's also found in scrub and meadowland, and clearly on plantains where it has become naturalised. This small field has taken about 10 years to establish. The crocus is an interesting plant. It is not unlike the daisy, where it will fold over in the evening when there is low light. And this is part of a strategy which ensures that the plant's pollen is conserved and it only opens on bright, well-lit sunlight days where the maximum exposure to day-flying pollinators exist. And of course the invertebrates are often dependent on the temperature in terms of their metabolism, so therefore bright sunlight means a good aggregation of invertebrates, thereby maximising the plant's pollen stock. So, as always folks, before we embark on our journey into the field, we will look at the features and characteristics which will enable us to identify and find it in the field, beginning with the inflorescence. The general form of the crocus is that of a low-growing perennial plant in the family Iridaceae, or the iris family. The plants grow between 5 and 20 centimetres, 2 to 8 inches in height, and they derive from underground corms. The crocus is acaulescent, meaning it lacks a visible lower stem above the ground, and the flowers open and close at night or in low light. The floristic characteristics are as follows. The flower has 6 tepals in 2 whorls of 3, an inner perianth and an outer perianth. It has 3 elongated stamens, and it has 1 pistil consisting of 3 branching stigma, and a very long flower tube extending down the flower to the ground level where the ovary is situated. The following slides depict the tepals of the inner and outer whorls of the perianth. Likewise, the following crude field dissections in each of the 3 species illustrate the floral components of the flower. The long flower tube descends some considerable distance down into the ground where the ovary is located, possibly to make the best of better subterranean temperature. The spring crocuses are amongst the earliest flowers seen and optimally flower between January and March. The vegetative or leaf characteristics of crocuses are basal colline leaves that sheathe the stem base, which arise along the aerial stem. The crocus is acaulescent, which it lacks a lower stem above the ground, and the leaves in general are grass-like, with the Adaxial front surface flat or channeled with a pale stripe, and a Adaxial rear surface keeled with 2 grooves, and therefore in cross-section boat-shaped. The white medium stripe is parenchymatous, meaning it lacks chloroplasts and likely has air spaces. Okay folks, I'm going to attempt to do a very quick head to toe of the plant in terms of its floristic and vegetative characteristics. As you have already seen, the plant is in a white form, a purple form and a golden yellow form, as well as a variegated form containing stripes. The plant originates in the ground as a corm. If we look, we can see that the flower itself has a long pedicel and there is no visible stem above ground, and this is generally termed acaulescent, where basically the pedicel runs to the ground and there is no visible stem. The pedicel is covered with a leafy bract, which I believe is termed a cataphyll. If I just move that bract away, you should see on the side there a leafy bract, which I'm detaching now. So that is running up the side of the pedicel. And within that pedicel, there is the style which travels some considerable distance down the pedicel to where the ovary is located close to or in the ground. As we move up the plant, we can see it's composed of 6 petals, or I should say tepals, arranged in 2 whorls of 3, an outer and an inner whorl. I don't know if you can just see that on the camera. Within the centre of the plant, we have 3 elongated stamens with the bright yellow pollen, and in the centre we have a branching stigma which converges to a carpel of three in the Gynoecium. So that is the overall picture of the crocus in terms of its internal structures. That's perhaps a better shot now. You can see 3 visible anthers and the branching 3-form stigma, which will go all the way down the style and eventually all the way down this pedicel, which is flagged, as we've showed you before, with this cataphyllid leaf. And the flower tube or style will yield an ovary close to or in the ground, and what will happen is it will remain there until the seed develops, and once the seed develops, the pedicel will start to grow and elongate and push that seed up to the surface of the soil. So that's a brief stem to toe of the plant, which is derived from a corm in the ground. It's a relatively simple plant structure with the 3 stamens, the 1 3-part stigma converging down a style to an ovary close to or in the ground. And again, it's no visible stem above ground, and its pedicel is protected by this cataphyllid leaf. The leaves are basically straightforward. They are grass-like, and they are keeled on the back and furrowed on the front, and as you may be able to see, there is a white stripe running up the centre of the plant. So the leaves themselves are grass-like, quite shiny, which helps them adapt to cold temperatures, mindful that this plant is tolerant of temperature extremes, hence it pushes itself up from the snow and the frost and so on and so forth. And as I said, we can see the keel on the back and the furrow in the front, and the leaves are almost grass-like, elongated and tapered to the point. So that's the corm, the leaves and the inflorescence. In other words, the floristic and vegetative characteristics of the crocus, which we see as an early spring flower, to which there's approximately, in the UK, 100 or so cultivars, making them difficult to identify unless you put the species in yourself. So that's the overall background to crocus. Clearly much more going on there than meets the eye, and as we can see, it exists in this particular planting of white, purple, golden yellow, and a striped variant or stripy form, which we'll show in the static images.
So folks, let us allow the crocus to speak for itself.
Well folks, that's it from me. Once again, thank you very much for watching. If you have liked or enjoyed this video or found it interesting or educational, please like, share and subscribe to help us bring the next one in the series. All that remains to be said, in the words of Maggie, our international symbol of floral appreciation, is get outdoors and enjoy it.